You're watching KJRH TV 2, Tulsa.
From KJRH, this is Newscenter 2 live at 5 with Jerry Weber, Beth Ringel, and meteorologist Gary Shore.
More and more, the gates of Keystone Lake have been opening, and that could mean more flooding along Riverside, down to Broken Arrow, and on to Muskogee. Good evening, everyone. For residents in Tulsa and areas like Bixby, Jenks, and Sand Springs, today has been a day of waiting and hoping for relief.
But a close watch of Lake Keystone has forced the Corps of Engineers to open the floodgates more as the day wears on. The flow started at 160,000 cubic feet per second, but it now stands at 300,000 cubic feet per second. And for many low-lying areas throughout Tulsa, evacuations are underway. As we just mentioned, the biggest threat so far comes from the release of water on Lake Keystone. The lake was getting full because of a lot of runoff water from heavy rains the past week. Newscenter 2's Kay Colby has been at the offices of the Emergency Operations Center in downtown Tulsa all day. She joins us now live with a report. Well, Kay, what's the situation now?
Well, Beth, one of the things we want to bring out is the latest situation on the maps we've been hearing so much about all day. The officials have decided not to release any new maps naming any more potential flooding sites until the flow down the river increases beyond 300,000 cubic square feet. Now, the maps that are in place now, that means the areas that already have been evacuated, were designed for that 300,000 square feet limit, and that's what they want to stick with as far as maps until the situation gets worse. Something else, at this moment, we are receiving more sandbags from Kansas. That's good news for people that do want to pick up additional sandbags. Another important announcement from here is the fact that the Highway Patrol says they are having a problem with sightseers around the Keystone Dam. They are urging people to stay away from that area. And also another announcement, we could be looking at another evacuation at the University Village, which is behind the City of Faith, around 7 o'clock tonight. And again, there is going to be another update from the spokesman who's been briefing with all the officials about this. That'll be in about 10 minutes, and we will be carrying that live for you. Back to you.
All right, Kay, thank you very much. Well, today we took an aerial tour of the flooded areas in Chopper 2.
Absolutely. Newscenter 2's Bruce Dunbar has been aboard Chopper 2 all day, and he has just returned from an extensive trip, and I know you have seen a great deal, Bruce.
Well, I really have. It's amazing what you can see from the air that you really can't appreciate by looking at the ground. The first video we have is of Keystone Dam. It was taken about an hour ago. If we can go to that tape and take a look at how fast the water is rushing out, there it is. Jerry, they told me that it's released now at about 280,000 cubic feet per second. That's an increase of almost 100,000 cubic feet since earlier this morning at about 6 o'clock. It's a torrent coming out of that dam. However, I talked to an official that we'll hear from in a moment who told me that no problem, the dam is performing beautifully. Sandbagging operations are underway. They're trying to protect a power station that's right next to the dam. They're on alternate power right now. That power station is used to help control the gates of the dam. Now, if we can come back live for a moment, we can talk about the fact that I did get an interview with the project manager for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. His name is Cliff Hayes, and he's a man with a real conscience. You know, I think a lot of people think he's sitting up there making decisions without realizing what havoc he is wrecking down here in this area. The man really had something, I think, fairly impressive to say when I asked him what he thought about the trouble that he was causing here downstream, and we have that response for you right now. About that?
Well, anytime you have to release the amount of water we're doing and knowing that it's going to impact on the people downstream in the way that it has, you know, it makes you feel real heartbroken. You know, it's not something that's pleasant to do. And, it's super unfortunate. Mother Nature is not cooperating.
You really don't have any other choice, do you?
No, we do not.
Well, you can see he really doesn't have a choice. The water is almost up to the top of the dam, and there's simple mathematics at work here. He has to let the water out so that he doesn't go over the top of the dam and lose the dam. Then we'd really have a problem. So.
And nobody wants to play God in that situation, obviously.
No, and they're being very careful about trying to check weather forecasts, and he says it's a real balancing act, trying to let out enough water to keep the integrity of the dam intact, and also try to prevent as much damage downstream as possible.
I tell you, I don't envy them at all. I don't envy your trip today either. Thank you.
Well, I have one more thing
do
for
you?
you quick.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're kind of winging it here. That's the way it's been all day since early this morning. What we're looking at now is a tour of the Arkansas River. That's a neighborhood right below the dam, Candlestick Beach housing area. And then next we have a look at the neighborhood around Hissam Memorial Center. You can see that most of those houses are well underwater, inundated. Now there's a look at the Highway 97 bridge to Sand Springs. You can see that the water is creeping up very close to the bridge, very close to being washed out there. And next we have for you a very interesting shot of the Burlington Northern Railroad Bridge at 11th Street. You can see, Jerry, that there are cars filled with gravel. That's done on purpose. They're trying to weigh down the bridge enough so that they can keep it, so that the water doesn't wash it away. You can see the water's almost up to the level of the bridge. Next, we have some flooding at 25th and Riverside Drive. You can see the water is backed up through the sewers and is moving up the street several houses now, probably more than that by morning, certainly. Next, we have for you, after that, a look at the pedestrian bridge across the Arkansas, a real popular tourist attraction, I would say. People enjoy walking across it. Nobody on it today. You can see that the water is almost up to the walkway on the bridge. Finally, we have we have two more shots for you. This is a look at the Place One apartment building in Brookside. You can see that there's a lot of flooding there. At least the bottom floor of apartments there are in part underwater. And then finally, we have for you a real impressive scene. This really tells the story of what's happening in this community. Sandbagging operations at Bel Air Shopping Center, at Peoria and I-44. Look at all those volunteers, neighbor helping neighbor. It's really a heartening sight. And in any kind of a disaster like this that I've covered, and I've done a number of them over the last 12 years, this is the kind of thing you like to see. If we can come back live now. This is the kind of thing you like to see, people helping each other. And it's a theme we saw all over northeastern Oklahoma. And later on, you'll see some video from Bartlesville that we shot, and we talked to the lieutenant governor, and you'll have a little statement from him.
Super job. Thank you. Catch your breath, because I know you got more to do.
Yeah, I sure
Bruce
do.
Dunbar with a report from, obviously has been all over Chopper 2, with Chopper 2 all over northeastern Oklahoma most of the day. Now, as Bruce showed you in some of those shots you just saw from Chopper 2, the water is inching its way up Riverside Drive, and the Arkansas River is now threatening the homes along the river. And Newscenter 2's Pete Knutson is standing by live at the scene, at the river. And Pete, what is your evaluation there now?
Well, Jerry, right now the water has come up over the banks at several locations along Riverside. The whole day here, and of course starting last night, it's been a long wait for the people living along Riverside. They've been spending the time getting their furniture and belongings out of their homes, getting to higher ground. Now, first of all, the river started overflowing its banks at about 1 o'clock this afternoon. It first did that at in the 1200 block of South Riverside. There about 1 o'clock. It took about, an hour and a half or so to cover about 5 blocks on Riverside. The water got to be about a wheel deep. Here behind me, we're at 25th and Riverside. This water isn't overflowing from the river right now. It's coming back from back up in the storm sewers, but they expect the river here to overflow in about a half hour or so. It's just ready to come over the banks there right now. It's just amazing to see all the people pulling together to help here. It seems like these kind of disasters bring all the people together and bring out the best in everyone. Over here you can see neighbors and volunteers have come out to sandbag 25th Street as it comes into Riverside. They're trying to keep as much water out as they can. And it's just been amazing to see all these people in. Officer Randolph has been here all day. He's with the Tulsa Police Department. Well, although there's been a lot of people here helping, there have been some problems, I understand.
Yes, we've had quite a problem with sightseers coming down, wandering along the riverbank, and generally getting in our way, blocking the residential areas, parking their cars back there and walking over, and making a problem for the volunteers to get in here and find a place to go.
What is the danger here right now? I know about an hour or so ago a truck tried to get through this water here that's more than wheel deep. They needed 2 or 3 trucks to get out. What is the potential danger here?
Well, I don't believe anybody really knows what the potential is now. With the storm sewers backing up and the river coming over, this could get quite deep in the near future.
All right, thank you very much. So, of course, as the water keeps rising, the streets here will be filling up as we go tonight. One quick time, just to go over the areas that have been evacuated. They're from 21st Street to 71st Street, all the way from Riverside, all the way over to Peoria. Jerry?
Pete, thank you. And that shot over your right shoulder there is just an amazing one, the work that they have already done there. Thank you very much, Pete, down on Riverside Drive near the river. Still to come, we will get a look at how things are going not only along Riverside and Brookside, but across the state.
And Bartlesville residents are coping with flooding problems of their own. It's the worst flooding in that city's history. We'll be right back.
We will return to Newscenter 2's coverage of the flood of '86.
Great story.
You're really well informed.
Well, Bill, what is the view like now?
Well, fortunately, Beth, right now from up here, about 50 feet in the air, we can't see any water behind us. But what we can see is some indication of what they're preparing for. As you can see, the National Guard is here just behind us. They have been on Brookside throughout the day, not allowing people into the Brookside area unless they have business there, unless they live there, or unless they're helping somebody move. Meanwhile, a mile away, the water continues to rise. A block east of Riverside, water has already now backed up into the sewers. The pedestrian bridge is still above water, but the river is roaring right underneath it. And along Riverside, people continue to help people move out. And we are looking now at some shots of the dam. As you can see, it is really let go today, and that is what is causing the problem here along the Riverside and Brookside area. We're going to bring you back now live out here onto 37th and Peoria. And behind me, you can see that, once again, Peoria looks just normal, but just a mile over to our west on Riverside Drive, the situation is ominous. For the best view in town of that, we take you up to a camera on our tower, about 200 feet up in the air. There is the view. As you can see, the Arkansas River is moving incredibly fast downstream, and what used to be the river parks is now a lake right in the middle there. As you can see, the Arkansas River continues to swell. There's more water there than when we showed you that picture just about an hour ago. Just below what looks like a lake is Riverside Drive, so that gives you an idea of just how close we are to having that water just wash right over Riverside Drive. We're going to bring it back down here now to our roof. Of course, we have one of the best viewpoints here, and of course, a better one up on the roof that we just showed you. But another great vantage point is about 3 miles upstream off the top of another large building where Newscenter 2's Marty Griffin is standing by live at this moment. Marty, what's it look like up there?
That's right, but we do have an excellent vantage point here. We're on the 30th floor of a downtown apartment complex, and up to my right, you can see a great deal of water coming down the Arkansas River. It's approaching road level on the 11th Street Bridge. On the left side of the river, the water has swollen over the banks and is approaching the first floor apartments of the Westport apartment complex. On the right side of the river, if we move over a little bit to the right, we can see at the intersection of 11th Street and Riverside, the water is over the banks and is heading up into some areas where there are apartments and apartment complexes. Because of the potential for serious flooding, in the Brookside area, many businesses are moving out because they were flooded before, and this time they would rather be safe than sorry. They had packed it up and were moving out all along Peoria in the Brookside area today. Business owners have taped up, closed down, and sandbagged everything they could get their hands on. At many shops, owners have been up all night, emptying their stores and sealing them against possible floodwaters. Georgia Brunton was flooded out in 1959. This time, she is ready, but worries about others.
We have a lot of friends in the Brookside area. I know that we've been helping them through the night, load up their trailers and all, get their things out. Because it's frightening. It's a scary time for us.
Elmer's Barbecue is a Brookside landmark. They, too, have been flooded before in '59. Elmer's daughter says when this flood comes, she will continue feeding customers until the water's in her ears.
But we want to have it open in case, some people get stranded and need some food and stuff, so we go on from. Until the water comes in, we'll be here. For sure.
A boat sits on a pickup truck in front of the Bristow City restaurant. Inside, workers are holding a flood watch, and the owner seems calm.
Well, I think I'll just sit here by the window and watch and wait for it and maybe have a beer or two.
Beth, if it continues to flood the way it is, many business owners along the Brookside area will be crying in their beer. But the good thing is they had warning this time, and many of them had the chance to get their belongings on higher ground, so the losses won't be as great as they have been in the past. Of course, when we had the flood in '59, many of those businesses lost a great deal. Back to you, Beth.
All right, thank you very much, Marty. And even we here at Channel 2 have been sandbagging. We are preparing for the worst, hoping for the best. We have had a full staff in here. We have had probably the largest newsroom here at Channel 2. than we've had in a long time, and we are just monitoring the situation. We understand we're going to be going back to the Emergency Operations Center. They have some more updated information. KJRH is going to be giving us that information. It has just been we have that shot okay. We're going to go now to KJRH at the Emergency Operations Center. Kay?
Well, Beth, every hour we've been updating you with the official spokesman here at the Emergency Operations Center, and he's just returned from a briefing with officials, and we can go to him and get the latest information. He's got some new information on the Corps of Engineers. Now we go to Captain Mike Baker.
He joins us now with the latest information.
Thank you. As of 5 p.m. this evening, the word that we received from the Corps of Engineers is that they are maintaining 300,000 cubic foot per second release from Keystone Dam. Now, they anticipate keeping the CFS at this level unless the Perkins gauge indicates otherwise. This gauge continues to be washed away. They're having some problems with that, and the only need for a change in the CFS flow would be a radical gauge reading. That is the latest word that we have from the Corps. Another message of importance, and we really hope that everyone understands the intent of this message. There are some areas within the defined 300 CFS guidelines that we have on the map here that are becoming, and we'll go to the map here in a minute. Officials are concerned about the access to these areas. So what we have done is we have added a short list here of areas where we would ask people to be considering a slow movement out of those very specific areas. And once again, that's only because of the accessibility to these areas. And when we look at the map, you should be able to see that they are surrounded in some sense by areas that we had been concerned about at the 300 CFS level. The first one is 65th Street to 71st Street from 5 blocks east of Peoria Avenue to the river. That's 65th Street to 71st Street from 5 blocks east of Peoria to the river. The second area would be the Joe Creek area south of 71st Street to the Arkansas River. That's the Joe Creek area south of 71st Street to the Arkansas River. The third area is the Fred Creek area south of 81st to the Arkansas River. That's the Fred Creek area south of 81st to the Arkansas River. And once again, I'd like to mention that the reason we bring this up is because officials are becoming concerned about the accessibility to these areas. If we can move to the map up here, you will see on this map up here, those isolated areas that we have identified on the map with the red stripes, as you can see, they are well within the projections that we had made. They are areas that are in some sense affected by accessibility from these high waters. So officials are asking people to consider gathering up and making possibly a slow and orderly move out of that area. Let me go ahead and repeat those areas for everyone. The first one is 65th Street to 71st Street from 5 blocks east of Peoria Avenue to the river. The Joe Creek area south of 71st Street to the Arkansas River. And the Fred Creek area south of 81st Street to the Arkansas River.
Okay, there you have it. There are 3 more areas that they are advising because of access that people could get ready to move, and that's only because of access into the areas that they're worried. So again, those 3 areas need to be aware. Again, the latest word from the area is that the Corps will be holding it at 300 cubic square feet for now. Back to you.
All right, Kay, thank you very much. And Mike Baker is another one who has done an excellent job. He's had no sleep, and we salute him.
I know, and it began for him in Bixby. You know, when I know our reporters talk to him all night long down there. He's probably had 5 hours of sleep this week, you know, so Mike Baker needs everybody's good wishes, I'll guarantee you. Well, we've been talking about how it looks along Brookside, down along the Arkansas River. In Sand Springs, they're also bracing for the worst. And News Center 2's Karen Keith has been in Sand Springs all day and has gotten back safely, thank goodness, and I know there's many problems there.
There are, and I think there's something that we're hearing now in the Brookside area, that is the roar of the river. Yeah. They've been hearing that in Sand Springs for some time. It is an ominous sound because it's so swollen.
Sure.
In every neighborhood where we stopped in Sand Springs, strangers were helping strangers, doing whatever was needed. Residents in Sand Springs are praying they can minimize the river's damage.
Highway 51, just south of Sand Springs, is a frenzy of activity as people try to get out of their homes. 83-year-old Bessie Jackson has lived on this land 70 years. She's never seen anything like this. Her daughter, Evelyn Taylor, is looking for a place now to store all of Bessie's belongings.
However, what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and park on this side of Sabon right there, and then you see we're all going to strain up there, and all you got to do is come on right on around Sabon. We'll be over there. Okay. We're going to line up over there. Then. All right.
Just a mile away at the Meadows Housing Addition, a few stragglers were doing last-minute checks on their homes. The only way in was by boat.
I know I got everything in my house at least 5 foot up, so hopefully.
Are you optimistic? What are you feeling right now?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's really kind of hard for me to tell you exactly. I just wish it was this big hoax.
At Fisher Bottoms on the river, some 400 homes and trailer homes are in jeopardy. Many are already underwater. Jack Norris and his family can't even see the roof of their home.
Water has gotten up probably within 10, 15 foot of the house, but never anything like this.
Where do you go from here?
Well, we've got friends and relatives that we can stay with and just start over.
In Sand Springs, volunteers are bagging sand and delivering it to areas in need of help. Keystone Plaza off Charles Page, they were busy using the sandbags. Before these homes at Bruner Station, it's too late. Black Boy Creek already covers them. Charles Page Boulevard is bubbling with water from the same creek, as well as the Arkansas River, and residents are wondering if the levee will offer enough protection.
You know, that levee's been like a security blanket there, and I don't think anybody is depending on it at this point.
Are they burying up all right over there, the people?
Yes, it is just unbelievable. There was one man I saw in my neighborhood last night helping, Richard Hodge, I'll say his name, helping people move there. Went to another friend's house and helped them. He was in Sand Springs because he used to live there, bagging sand today.
Gosh, how neat.
It is.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Beth?
1/3 to 1/2 of the town of Jinx will leave their homes and businesses behind them tonight. They're moving on to higher ground like many others to escape the Arkansas River. News Center 2's Linda Gelzer was in Jinx this morning while preparations for evacuation were beginning.
The parade started early in Jenks this morning. Bumper-to-bumper traffic cruised in and out as police tried to follow orders to clear the area.
Don't worry too much about property, just get the people out of there because they're recommended evacuation. We're trying to keep people out of the city.
Meanwhile, the Arkansas River continued to tease, promising to spill out of its banks but continuing on its swirling course. In spite of the river's threat, these men joined other curious onlookers at the shore.
Yeah, better stack them. Once you stack them, 2 down and 2 across. Put that one down. Put that one down just like this one.
Jenks public school officials worked like mad to protect their least valuable but most irreplaceable possessions, the school records, truckloads of them. And the entire bus fleet was moved to West Campus, where water couldn't reach. This mobile home was moved here at Shady Grove 1 week ago. We caught the owner on his way out.
Well, the flood's coming and I don't have any insurance, so it's, cheaper to move it than have a flood in the trailer house,
And down the road at the Glenpool High School gym, this welcome sign takes on a whole new meaning because this place will be a temporary shelter for Jinx residents tonight. Linda Gelzer, News Center 2.
Jinx residents are counting heavily on a levee that was built in 1960 after the 1959 flood. The town hasn't flooded near the middle since the levee was built.
Yesterday, the residents of Bartlesville said it was the worst flooding they'd ever seen. Today, the flooding became even worse. The banks of the Caney River raced over its edges. Most of the homes in the city are at least partially underwater, and the business community has been ravaged by water reported to be 8 to 9 feet through the business district. Water is continuing to rise, forcing the Copan Dam to release more water, and also from Lake Hula. And the water is expected to continue to rise until early tomorrow morning. Lieutenant Governor Spencer Bernard came to Bartlesville to try to assess the damage in the city. He says he's preparing a proposal to the federal government that will get the city declared a disaster area. Bernard hopes to have the proposal submitted as early as next week.
And the flooding continues in Miami this afternoon. The Neosho River, which runs through the community, is still rising slowly. The river was expected to crest yesterday at 12 feet over flood stage, but rains in the area have dumped more water into the river. More than 300 households have been evacuated at this time, and city officials say sandbagging is a major priority in trying to protect the areas of Miami still not covered by water. Just as the flooding situation appeared to be improving in Bixby, some residents prepare for more water. A neighborhood known as Johns Park is receiving floodwater at this time. Authorities report the water is rising fast. Yes, Gary.
Yeah,
please.
we need some good news. What we really need is a long dry spell.
Yeah.
And it is about time we've got it coming. And it's going to be starting right now. Dry air is coming in, and things are going to stay kind of cool and dry for the next several days. A couple of Canadian dry fronts will be coming down, and no more significant precipitation for our part of the state. There are showers down south, though, but that should not add to the flooding woes any, because they've had a big break in the rain in the southern sections for the last several days, while the northern areas have been clobbered. Right now outside in Tulsa, it's pretty cool out there. Temperature at 64 degrees, and the humidity running around 70% right now. The winds are coming in out of the north at 7 miles an hour, and the barometer's rising as that first cool, dry, high-pressure center is gradually building into our area. Now let's take a look at storm surge radar, and you can see nothing around Tulsa, but down to the south there are some showers. They have been tending to weaken and dissipate, but it looks like more showers and thunderstorms will remain possible, mainly in the southern sections. Now let's take a detailed look at the areas being affected by this flooding and what's going on right now. They have been releasing 300,000 cubic feet per second. Again, that is about 2.5 million gallons of water per second coming out of Keystone Dam, and they have to release that much because of the bad news, which is that more water and even higher crest is coming down the Cimarron and Arkansas rivers towards Keystone Lake. So they have to keep a jump ahead of that and make sure that they don't fill the dam before that, fill the pool behind the dam before that crest gets here. So these areas, and they've been numbered by the city along both sides of the Arkansas River, all the low spots running down past Sand Springs, basically kind of in between the Keystone Expressway and Highway 51, and in between the levee and the river around Sand Springs. Also, much of the Brookside area, there's a particular low spot around Cincinnati between 31st and 29th. And then there are patchy low areas that extend several blocks in from Riverside, but the worst of it is going to be right near Riverside Drive. And they're also urging people again in Broken Arrow and the Indian Springs 4 and Indian Springs complex areas to go ahead and evacuate because of this high flood crest that's coming down. Now, they released that high water from Keystone Dam, that 300,000 cubic feet per second that's going to cause the major flooding. They first released that about an hour ago, starting at about 4:30. What that means is the beginning of that outflow is going to arrive in Sand Springs just starting about now, within the next half an hour. Then it's going to be between 7:30 and 8:30 before the leading edge of that starts to arrive in Brookside. And that's just the leading edge of the advancing high water. So don't be deceived, even though it's still relatively low and not coming up that fast there. It's really going to come up fast later tonight between 7:30 and 8 and midnight, and probably by midnight and on through the early morning hours is when the highest water will be in, and then it's going to stay very high through tomorrow, probably all the way through Monday and into Tuesday. They're going to have to keep letting it out at that same rate, so it'll keep it flooded in Brookside, and then finally by Tuesday they should be able to let enough out that they're able to let the water levels come back down. By the way, it does take about 6 hours for the leading edge of that outflow to reach Bixby, and about 8 hours for it to get down to move into Wagoner County. Of course, Muskogee is going to have a lot of problems too, a lot of very serious problems. One of the worst things that I saw reported this afternoon was the fact that out at Perkins on the Cimarron River, the crest was 2.5 feet higher than expected this afternoon, and the water was still rising. That means there's still a lot of water being dumped into Keystone Lake. And although it's not being dumped in as fast right now, it's going to be coming in at a faster rate, it looks like, later tonight, and the fastest rate of all will be tomorrow coming into the lake. That's why they're having to dump out so much water right now to keep a jump ahead of that so that we avoid more serious flooding. The Caney River just about cresting now at Bartlesville. That's going to take a while with the record crest working down. Verdigris also going to have very high crests up around Lenapaw and also at Claremore. Muskogee's going to be in a lot of trouble too because of all this water converging on them over the next few days. The high temperature 74, the low 60 today. The average pretty close to normal. The record's 39 and 97. Temperatures now, well, we didn't have time to plot too many temperature reports today, but they are generally in the low to mid 60s around the area, and the rain is only down in the southern sections. Look at the satellite pictures, and it's a little deceptive because you'll be able to see there is a lot of development of clouds, and you can see as we go through the loop there, thunderstorms down in Texas. But notice the storms themselves tend to push further to the south, even though there's a lot of bright clouds that kind of come over Oklahoma. There's very dry air near the surface, and that's going to prevent any significant rainfall of any importance in northeastern Oklahoma, although we could be seeing some sprinkles and some light showers. Here's the map for tomorrow. One Canadian cool front through, another one on the way, and these will be cool, dry fronts. They'll keep the rain down mainly over Texas. And so our forecast shapes up this way on through tonight and the rest of this evening. Some scattered thunderstorms down south, partial clearing from Tulsa to the north, cooler and drier. That's good news. Then tomorrow morning, a few showers mainly down south. Otherwise, from Tulsa to the north, partly cloudy to cloudy and cool. And then tomorrow afternoon, the showers should gradually taper off and end in the southern sections. And then they may redevelop at times on Monday, but they should stay mainly in the southern areas. Otherwise, clearing to partly cloudy for Tulsa. Lows tonight in the 50s on the cool side. Highs tomorrow in the 60s, and then the extended outlook, well, it looks pretty good. It looks very good for during the week. We're finally going to get a dry spell, and this stubborn jet stream that over the last 3 weeks has caused all these problems has finally moved out, and I hope we never see it again.
Now if we can just move the problems out that it left with us, that's the next problem.
That's the problem, and especially the fact that that high crest has not yet reached Keystone Lake.
Yeah. Well, they're doing the best they can, and we thank you for your report, and we'll hear from you, I'm sure, before many more minutes go past.
Yeah, they're gonna watch it every hour, and there's a chance that it won't come quite as high as they're thinking tomorrow.
Good. We appreciate it. Stay with us.
We're going to have a look at sports when we come back.
Stay tuned for more of Newscenter 2's coverage of the flood of '86.